Wow, a topic near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Not video games, but
Yeah.
cars.
I figured
'Cause my
we
heart
did.
is cold and made of metal.
Yeah, and my heart's made of eggs. So we did that last week. And this week, I figured we'd do
Gotta have
one
your
beer.
omelets, man.
Yeah. Oh, French omelet. We're going to cook one day, but just wait.
You'll
Today,
have to, yeah, I know. You'll instruct me.
Today
we'll
we're-
have the cooking podcast.
yeah. Today we're doing a car thing, though, because you are quite... You can give a whole performance on this, I believe.
Wait, did you actually make an intro?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna be the emotional annoyed guy in this podcast. You can be the more the numbers, the data man. I really, when car prices started going wacky, I really hoped that by now that would just be past us, but it's still here. And so it may seem like we're late to the party, but the problem still persists despite the fact that we are supposedly, slowly but surely, getting over supply chain problems, and chips aren't as big of a problem, right? You have, you can get graphics cards now. Obviously, it is different chips that are going into cars than are necessarily going into graphics cards and whatnot, but, shortages are subsiding, but car prices are still stupid.
Yeah.
And it's exceedingly frustrating. Should we start off with maybe a little bit of a history? Because I feel like I browse through, car listings just out of interest fairly regularly. Not as much now, and which is because I have lost interest because of how dumb it is, that it's not fun anymore. But in the past, I used to browse through listings pretty regularly on sites like DuPont Registry because, there were things that it would be interesting to see. Oh, this is, possibly within reason at some point. Would I be interested in this? And there was it was just a very noticeable roller coaster that took place when COVID hit in the immediate months that followed, and then a little bit of a delay, and then into 2021 when it just went parabolic upward. And I'm not sure if you had any, first-hand anecdotal accounts, but I remember very specifically, right, a couple months after COVID had hit, I was looking at, used car prices for supercars, and I'm like, there's some deals happening right now. I'm like, I remember seeing a McLaren Senna listed for $650,000 with not that much mileage. It wasn't a super desirable spec that I would have gone for, but that was down from probably asking $1 million just a couple months before. Yeah, it was a dramatic plummet in certain car prices. It wasn't every single one, but it was the uncertainty of the world. What's the economic outlook going to be? I need to save money rather than spend on these things because who knows how much I am going to need to have in my bank account if work doesn't happen anymore, if the economy isn't operating and I need to just be able to buy essentials without work. So all of a sudden you have this plummet.
Demand for higher end cars were down.
Well, but it was also, there wasn't a ramp up in demand for any cars, used cars, so on and so forth, even at the bottom end either. Immediately. It was there was a little bit of a depression, probably more pronounced in just a couple months right after, I would say March, April, May 2020.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, it leveled back out. It came back up a little bit. And then my last big car purchase was a Carrera GT. And that was in beginning of October 2020. And I felt that I was paying a reasonable fair price for that. And at the time when I was browsing listings, pricing still seemed fairly normal, comparable to what it was pre-COVID. There hadn't been some big rocket launch. Again, this was more in the higher end of the spectrum. But I bought the Carrera GT, and then 2-3 months later, I start seeing these listings, and they're asking $900,000, $1 million, and I'm like, I call the guy who kind of helped with the transaction, when I got mine, and I'm like, they're not actually selling for this amount, right? Like the people are just trying to ask ridiculous amounts, right? Like what's going on with these prices? And he's like, I mean, some of them are asking too much, but also, they are ramping up a little bit in how much they're actually transacting for. And then, I keep tracking it. And it's better to look at auction results than it is just private listing sales. So I look a lot there's a site called Bring a Trailer, which is a big car auction website that has everything from, a Toyota Camry up to LaFerrari Aperta. And I'll look at auction results on that site as like a gauge of the market. And
why is it called Bring a Trailer?
You bring a trailer to pick up the car that you bought. That's
roll it in there.
From. Okay. Well, you put the car in the trailer and then you bring it home. Just the logistics.
Yeah. So it goes.
So it's just like, okay, the way they are actually like transacting these crazy high prices. What's going on? It keeps going up until probably around it's like the beginning of last year, right when you had peak of S&P, NASDAQ, low interest rates, and that was kind of like the highest price sale of a Carrera GT there, and it's come down slightly since then, but it's nowhere near where it was at the time that I bought the car. So I use my car experience as an analog for, I think it has followed the general trend of used car prices as a whole, maybe a more pronounced curve here, but still, I don't think that when I had bought my Carrera GT, there had been a massive surge yet in used car prices in general. So it took until around like the beginning of 2021, I think, where things really just kind of took off like a rocket ship.
I mean, we've got these used car prices graph here. Love graphs, of course, for all the prices. Not necessarily the higher end. This is more of your standard kind of.
But the curve, it's the same applies.
Curve, yes.
Yeah.
And so the y-axis is lower than that, but it still goes by you can see right where you said 2021, that really exponential kind of right up there. And then it kind of keeps going, maxes out in 2022. And now it's going to go down. So that's nice. So that relates to your story. So continue with yours.
Well, so it's just like, it caught me off guard because I wasn't really in the market for any vehicles at all after I got the Carrera GT. And, the interesting part is I actually, prior to the Carrera GT, I'd also cycled out a couple cars in 2020. And so I was able to basically complete the entire loop of buying it, not pre-COVID, but I got a Porsche 911 GT3 RS. And that was in June 2020. So that was when things were like really, really depressed. And I was able to get that car, which was basically one of the, outside of having a custom paint to sample, one of the highest specs that you could get on that. You're laughing.
No, just continue.
It was like a really, really nice, desirable spec that I liked. And I was very surprised at the price that they were willing to let it go. Lo and behold, when I sold that about 6 months ago, it went for about 15% higher than what I had paid for it. And it was already a used car when I had got it.
Which is absolutely abnormal.
Yeah. When I sold it, it had 4,000 more miles on the car than when I had got it. I think I got it with 1,700 miles, and I think I sold it with about 5,700 miles on the car. And for a car like that is seen as higher-ish mileage. Porsches, people drive a little bit more so than other, like Ferraris, Lamborghinis in the equivalent range usually. So it was just like, it was wild to see. But again, it kind of, you end up losing out on it if you go and then get a new car in return, because the dealer is then going to be asking more on the car that you're getting. So it's just kind of a net even. You're just shifting, like, where. So what I ended up doing is I said, look, you can pay me less on the car that I'm selling, and then the new one, just drop what you're paying me on the GT3 RS by the same amount you're trying to overcharge on the new car.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening, though, is it ends up netting what it would have gotten in a sane economy.
Normal market.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like what it would have gotten kind of normally as a trade-in actually, no, not even. It still ended up getting more than I paid for it, even with that Delta shift. So
Great.
Still, yeah.
Well, good job. You didn't know you were making an investment at the time, but you're just so good at it, I guess.
Well, I mean, if I had put that equivalent amount of money in, say, Tesla at the time that I bought that car, then, GameStop even more so. But yeah, we would have made out a little bit better. So investment, sure. At least I didn't lose money necessarily.
Yeah.
But that said, I'm rambling on about anecdotes. It is probably, more important to look into, okay, so what actually caused this to happen? Because traditionally, they say, you're going to lose 30% of the value of your car the second that you drive it off the lot. Why did that change?
Gain 15%.
Yeah.
Well, there's kind of a bunch of stuff happening with why it decided to go a lot crazier in the past couple of years. The initial one is the same reason as everything else. At the time, 2021 is when supply shortages were kind of catching up because used cars and new cars alike, because there was shortages, especially the chip shortage, which a lot of people probably have heard about. There were just fewer new cars to kind of go around. And so used cars, and of course new cars, both of them that already have the chips in them, there's going to be more demand for any car in general. And so we've got another link here, another fantastic graph, if you will, from our absolute favorite website. It's bls.gov/charge/consumer price index/consumer price index by category line chart.htm. It may as well be the mascot at this point.
Wow, we love this data.
We love this particular web page. Yeah. And so you can see the price of new cars on that site, that subsection, had a similar kind of whoop going up at the time. And that was due to a lot of the stories you heard at the time. Supply chain shortages, the chip shortage, there was, and of course the situation in Taiwan, I think, was ramping up. Was it around that time? I forget time-wise when that was.
Well, when you say situation, you mean with it worries about an invasion?
Yes. And so
that's kind of always been a thing in the back
I
of
suppose,
people's minds.
Yeah.
But
they've gotten a little more pronounced about China has recently, but different topic. But most of the world's chips come from 75% of global chippage comes from Asia, that's from a 2020 report from the Semiconductor Industry Association.
TSM is no joke.
TSM, the semiconductor manufacturers.
The semiconductor manufacturer.
Yeah.
They may as well be the semiconductor manufacturer, but they are the big one.
Yeah. Taiwan, most of them are from there. Only 12% at the time comes from the United States, as opposed to 36% in 1990, simply because it's a lot cheaper to get them outsourced. But we'll get to that in a bit. Jordan, what were you about to say?
Oh,
you breathed in.
Nothing at all.
You went.
I breathed.
I thought you were. It's
looked
a breathe.
like
I
was going to talk. No, I'm so sorry that I
speaking.
false alarmed you with breathing. I'll try to do that less.
I'm always trying to do that less, and so.
I'm trying to breathe less.
Breath holding
Continue.
competition. Oh, okay. So, most of them come from Taiwan. Taiwan semiconductor manufacturer, and then also from different parts of Asia. However, because of these shortages, and also because of how lucrative of a business it is, we are attempting to bring some semiconductor manufacturing back to the United States.
I think it is also like it's under the guise of more of a national security thing, as well as a lot of the reason why the government is subsidizing a lot of that's going on. Again, topic for probably a different video, but yes, the U.S. is trying to onshore more chip manufacturing, but that is a lengthy, costly process to undergo, and
very
so
costly. Yeah,
it'll be a while before we'd see any improvements in supply chain by that sort of thing. But also, it will be more expensive, the chips that are coming from the United States, which then is inflationary anyway. So,
but I think for reason because there's more, or rather, right now there's less regulation and all of that in the countries where the semiconductors are manufactured, which is why they're now imported rather than domestically produced. Regulation, and also the materials are cheaper over there, all of that. And last summer, was it? The Chips and Science Act was passed, which gives, I think, $280 billion in total funding for factory building, research, manufacturing, all of that, to kind of help jumpstart this process. And of course, as you said, it's going to take some years until anything comes of it, because I don't know if you know, because I didn't write it down, but making chips is, I mean, it's pretty tough. There's how many places in the world make the machines that make the chips? Is it 5 or something?
I don't know the exact number there.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a couple in Asia, maybe 2 in Sweden or something, but it's the machines that actually make them. We have a picture of part of the machine here that makes the chips. They are one of the most complicated things that we produce as a species. Maybe a fusion reactor that we're trying to make is close by, but these things because they've gotten so advanced over the years, and the semiconductors, what is it called? The transistors. I think it's...
You're talking like the nanometer measurements?
Yes. They're getting so small. Like, we can't just carve them at this point. They're so we can't...
You mean someone's not just in a factory with a knife, cutting little pieces of metal apart?
Oh yeah, this is going to go on NVIDIA. No, we got to use at this point ultraviolet bursts of lensed ultraviolet light that goes on to there's a video of it that would explain
it's basically at this point it's just magic to me, and there's no way
magic
that I will ever be able to understand what goes on inside of a machine like this. It's just magic, basically.
Few people do understand what actually goes on inside this machine, I think, because it's so, and the price of these things, hundreds of millions, maybe over $1 billion, because
I also doubt it's something that you just go, hello, I would like to order, and they're like, okay, here, $100 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably a little more goes into that.
Yeah, because there's not many, like the picture you're seeing right now this is a unique picture. There is not many of these things in existence. They're so complex and expensive, and so
it's a rare internet photo.
Yes.
Very rare.
And so I like looking at it, though. Nice cable management. I mean, It
is very, very pleasing to look at. And also, it's in a clean room, which I'm sure that room there has positive pressure. You can have, no dust present in the environment.
Oh, I wonder. Imagine being the HVAC guy for this place. Set for life.
Crazy.
Yeah. And so...
Yeah. How do you measure? I don't know how you measure, how do you measure the ppm of the dust to ensure that there is zero?
Do they do
dust to ensure you're
They
not-
might do like ppb, parts per billion or something with
whatever measurement, but it's like, how do you know there is
yeah.
zero dust?
Well, they just get a little magnifying glass and they go, "Oh, it looks pretty clean, yeah." And so that pretty much does it.
All that to say, it is complicated to make chips, and the supply chain was thrown into a bit of disarray with COVID and factory shutdowns and things of that nature.
And it's much less expensive to outsource the chip making than to try and get one of these machine sets up and running in the US and the factories that have them. And so currently most of it is imported, but we're trying to change that. But part of that shortage with all, as you said, the supply chain with COVID and everything, that's what caused the initial uptick in used and new cars, because we needed something with chips. And
now, what I also, and this may or may not be accurate, but something that I also read was that because car manufacturers thought that they were going to see far less demand as a result of the pandemic, they did not commit to as many of their orders to put chips in new cars immediately when the pandemic hit, which then caused chips to be reallocated, which then made it harder to put new chips into cars once demand started to kick up unexpectedly. I don't know how true that is, but, could be less chips that are then being less allocated to new vehicles, therefore creating even more of a supply issue. But there is also, though, outside of just the mechanic of, okay, there are less chips, which makes it harder to complete cars, so there are less cars, there's the other side of this, which is that suddenly people were running out and trying to buy more cars than they were previously. And I do wonder, what is the psychological phenomena for that? Because that's more of something where you just kind of guess, okay, what was in people's minds that was causing them to go out and get a new car? Is it that public transport was seen as more of a
risk
safety hazard
because of
I need to go
quarters.
get my own car?
Yeah.
But it's strange because you have these contradictory elements, whereas on one hand you have lots of people who had to commute to an office, now they're able to work from home. But on the other hand, you have those same people being like, well, now I'm also going to get a car. So it's like, why both? Is it, okay, well, if I don't need to spend this money on gasoline as often, I can apply that towards, let me just get a new car instead. And even though I'm at home, I can essentially be net even, right? So it's, why did that happen? And you can really only speculate because there's no global survey of everybody who bought a new car during COVID and how much was like, was it a pleasure thing? Was it I just feel like it? Was it a necessity? But there is that strange juxtaposition, and it that's why the whole thing was such a weird situation, because I was like, wait, why are people buying more cars now? Why is the price going? Shouldn't people be buying way less cars? I'm very confused.
Also fantastic survey result. Oh, so why did you get a new car? I just felt like it. There we go. That's one for the masses. But
some people don't want to overthink,
Yeah. But I don't know. I didn't see any survey results for that. And it could be that unfortunately people are being called back into the office nowadays because businesses don't like remote work for some reason. I can't speak to that.
Well, they have all that office space, and it's like, well, we don't want this to go to waste.
Just sell it. Make some money.
It's not that easy. Mass selling of any sort of asset, then drops the price. And
you're right. We have such low real estate prices already. I hope no one sells their stuff.
Who's gonna buy Google Campus? Like, that's a slightly
someone's
different
about to buy
asset
Twitter
class.
Campus.
So it's like, there's.
I know. I get what you mean, but it's, it's a little. People are annoyed that they're being called back into an office when.
But that's happening more so now. While we're having more of a decline in the price, not returning to pre-pay. The reason why we are having this podcast is because it has certainly not returned. There. It's still elevated. And I hypothesize there will never be a return to pre-pandemic pricing
because they found out they can charge this much, and so they're going to.
It's well, I mean, supply and demand is still valid, right? Like, if nobody was going to buy a car, then they would have to drop the price. But it's because inflation now has taken hold. So there is some amount to blame, again, on like easy money policy and the factors that we've gone into in prior podcasts talking about just inflation as a general concept. So it's like you had the supply shortage, but now you've had inflation kind of take hold of just everything as a whole, which... So the way I hypothesize things panning out in the future is dealers need to get into check. That dealers are out of control.
Yeah.
I do not enjoy dealing with dealers.
These dealers are out of control.
They are. No, it's they act sometimes like they're doing you a favor in selling you a car, and it's like, you didn't even make the car. You just exist as a middleman.
Yeah.
And there are, outside of dealers existing...
that upcharges to get his cut.
Outside of being a network of service centers, that is a convenience that exists that would require some change and infrastructure to be built out in order to have all manufacturers exist in a way that Tesla does. With direct-to-consumer sales, there's problems with policy and legislation in many manufacturers are not even allowed in certain states to sell direct to consumers because there's dealership lobbies that have prevented that from ever happening as a legacy thing of the past. But you would have to build out a service center network. That is something that would need to take place because you would have a hard time convincing existing dealers to move over to only existing offering service, even though that is a lucrative part of their model, is the servicing aspect of it. Anyway, dealers are overcharging, but what will happen eventually is that manufacturers, they're not like, oh, we have no idea what's happening with dealerships. They're very well aware.
Yeah.
And the manufacturers see that they're losing out on money, though, because the dealer is able to take this massive cut when the invoice price is still the same, essentially. So what's going to end up happening is MSRPs are going to rise in order to catch up with what the dealers have been charging. So as a whole, cars will simply get more expensive. And I have seen that with certain models of cars that are, the new generation comes out and it's significantly more expensive than the last generation. Yes, there's improvements in the technology, but the difference in price between this new generation and the one before is far more than the previous generation and the one before that. We're just going to see much, much bigger price increases when new facelifts, new models are introduced in order to try to catch up with dealers to close that gap down. But the net effect is going to be the same, which is that people are simply going to have to spend more on cars. And obviously, if new cars are more expensive, it's going to increase the price of used cars because
people are going to want more used cars.
They're a percentage of the price of a new car.
Yeah.
Or more. But there are some weird things I've seen with used car pricing that just boggle my mind. Like I've seen, I know someone who got a Tesla. They could have bought one used for slightly over MSRP, or waited 1 month, put an order in on the website, get a new one at MSRP, which is what they did, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's like there's this like need for instant gratification that somehow is also driving these used car prices to, in some cases, be more than the new, because people are like, I don't want to wait. And in some cases, the delay is long. Like there can be 2-year waits for certain models, but in other cases, it's just like, why? Why would you ever do that? This price doesn't make sense. You can wait a month, get the new one that you want, and pay less. Why would you do that?
That sounds bubbly.
Yeah. I think that's probably come down a bit, especially with specifically Tesla has now reduced their prices.
Yeah.
Which I like that as a good sign, and I hope that maybe translates into other manufacturers following suit. But yeah, it's interesting because throughout the entirety of once the prices started taking off, and I'm going on drives with friends on the weekend, and we're all talking about this, everyone is like, just wait, it's gonna go back down. Just wait a little bit. Eventually it's gonna go. And I know as soon as I hear people say, just wait, it's gonna go back down, it means it never will. And that, but it not just because like, oh, of course that's how it always goes, counter to what you think it's gonna. No, but there is a reason for that, and the reason is, if you say, just wait, it's gonna go down, it means a million other people also have that exact same thought, which means they are themselves positioned, waiting, seeing if the price will go down. But the fact that it's not means there's still enough demand that eventually those people are going to cave, right? They're going to need a new car at some point, or they're going to not want to wait, or they're going to think, okay, the price isn't changing. I guess I'm just going to have to deal with this. And therefore it means that the price will not go down to where it was before as a result.
Yeah. Well, also, how do you, side note, you said you talked to people and they said they're waiting for it to go down. Yeah.
Yes.
How do you do that?
What do you mean?
Do you call, are you on a call with them as you're driving, or are they in your car?
No, we get to a location, we stop, we get out, we talk for a little bit, we get breakfast.
See, that makes some more sense, actually. I should have considered that. Yeah, all right. Continue. Keep going.
Well, but like when people are, positioned waiting,
yeah,
it often means that will not, it doesn't end up panning out. If everybody I knew was like, you got to jump in now because it's only going to keep going up, that would actually be a good indicator that it will probably cool off, because it would be very bubbly, and there's a good chance everybody who's going to jump in has already done so. Whereas the other scenario is you still have tons of people on the sidelines who are like, surely this is gonna go down, at which point they'll eventually capitulate. Yeah,
just waiting with all their money. It's just like waiting for a stock to go down. You want to catch the bottom, but if everyone's waiting to catch the bottom, they're standing on the sidelines with their armful of, they're paying in cash. They have an armful of cash for the car. And so
it's the same thing as like the people who are like, oh, the market is so bubbly right now, we're gonna hit a recession and go back down to like COVID lows. It's like, well, no, that's probably not gonna happen because there's too much bearishness in order for that to take place.
Yeah, bear markets never happen when people expect them to, because when they expect them to,
they're already positioned for it.
Yeah,
so.
Although very cautiously, nicely positive the past week, J-Pal.
Yeah, I think I do think we're getting a little. We're diverting from the car talk, but I do think there's a little bit too much exuberance going into the equities market at the moment, especially with like the worst performing companies being the ones that are leading the pack, which means that clearly not enough liquidity has been taken out of the system to combat inflationary pressures. So there does need to be
Carvana squeezed.
Yeah, there needs to either be a
Speaking
big
of cars,
pullback. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, you did have companies like Carvana
buying up a lot of the used cars. That's
so that certainly
partially as
didn't
well.
help.
Yeah.
No, of course, that hasn't really panned out for them very well because, as it
No.
turns out, cars aren't really a great investment vehicle for over like a massive scale over a long period of time.
Whoa, wait. What if there was a Carvana, but instead of buying cars from, normal cars, what if they bought supercars? Those do appreciate in price.
Yeah, the volume just isn't high enough, right? Because if you're looking to achieve massive institutional investment, dealing in supercars only is too niche. I think you're not going to be able to show the numbers that public markets and institutions are going to be interested in. There is,
It seems like
there is an industry for that. There are numerous high-end car resellers that is a big niche in supercars is like not the first party dealerships, but just these second-hand resellers who will pay up front for your car, and then they'll try to flip it for more, and you're just getting the convenience of getting issued a check instantly rather than having to wait. Which, yeah, I have mixed feelings about. So there have been numerous like real scammy things that have happened with those sorts of. I don't know. I don't know if you call them a dealership. They're a reseller, really. There have been some iffy behavior on behalf of some of those entities that exist. But I guess just as a whole, car dealership is just. I don't know. They're good people who I have talked to plenty, who I know at dealerships, who I like. But there's just an equal amount of like bad and pretentious, obnoxious stuff that goes on with it too.
Sleazy kind of like, hey, I'm do you a favor if you pay me $50,000. That's the favor.
So I went into an Audi dealership like over this last summer, 2022. Because I was looking into possibly an RS3, and I talked to the sales guy, and they have one in stock that I'm like, oh, this is a nice one. I'm interested in it. The MSRP is I think like 62,000 or something like that. And, they don't advertise on the website how much over sticker they're asking, but I'm like, I'll go in person. I might as well see the car. And so he's like a little hesitant. He's like, oh, I'll have to check what we're actually trying to ask for the car. And so he comes back and he's like, well, I think we're trying to get around 100,000 for it. I'm just like,
what?
But he's like, oh, we might have a little bit of flexibility on that.
Oh, sure.
But I will have to talk to my sales manager in order to, figure that out. And so, I sit down with the sales manager and I'm like, you're asking 40,000. You're asking almost
double,
100% on this thing. I'm like, look, if you have a sucker that comes in here and is willing to do that, then great. I understand. You sell it to them over me. That's just business. I would sell something to someone who's willing to pay double me as well. But I'm not going to pay that. And he's like, okay, well, how much are you looking to spend? And I'm like, look, maybe I'll go like 10K over if I'm feeling I'm not sure about that. But I get it in this market, like you're not getting anything for MSRP. He's like, I can't offer it to you. And he's like, doing a whole song and dance about why it's justified to pay at least like $90,000 for this thing.
This sounds like a skit someone made about car dealers.
Well, the thing is, like, he's clearly he's talking in such a way that it's like he expects people to cave to this and just be like, oh, okay, I'll pay 90,000 when I wouldn't cave. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to do it. He was actually angry. Like he was upset.
What?
He's like, we have nothing to talk about. And just like walks away.
Gee.
Yeah, no, I'm just like, I hate car dealerships so much. Oh my God. Like,
Wow.
like you're doing me a favor by pocketing this insane over market adjustment. You're out of your mind, dude. Anyway, so yeah, there's a lot of that pretentiousness that's really, really awful and obnoxious. And while I was there at the dealership, there's this other car. It was like a base A5 convertible or something like that. And it had on the window sticker one of the packages. You know, you like get a car, it'll have like, oh, this is the driver assistance package. This is the comfort package. It had the chip shortage package.
What does that mean?
It meant, and then under it says missing this, and this feature.
No way.
Yes, I kid you not. This is a real thing. And it had a 10K MSRP markup.
This is what? This is fake. This is a skit.
I wish that I was lying.
Ironic.
Right now.
They're doing it as a joke. This can't be real.
I can't. I don't want to believe that someone went into the dealership, saw the car that had chip shortage package, and then agreed to 10K over. Honestly, I don't want to believe it.
I see you're missing about negative 10K's worth of features here. I think I'm gonna get that one. Yeah. You should have taken. I wish you took a picture of that. And you could have posted it somewhere. If
I'll have to look through my phone history to see if I did.
Yeah, if anything, just post it on, I don't know, Twitter or Reddit or something. Honestly, let's give a good. That's a round of applause for the car dealers. Honestly, can we get some claps in the chat? Some clappers. What do we say? Can we get some car pogs or what are they?
Car pogs.
Car pogs. Some claps, clapping emojis in the chat here.
Yeah,
oh my!
It was bad. It was really bad. So it's like, yes, you have a combination of inflationary pressures, but you also have like dealers who have figured out that like it's same as like eggs and being able to apparently kind of just charge what you want in some cases on eggs. Dealers just being like, okay, so we can do this now.
Cal-Maine Foods is just the egg dealership.
Yeah, really are. But then on the other hand, it's like I have talked to another dealership where I service, and this is out of date now because this was probably around April 2021. And they were telling me like we were getting, X number of cars pre-pandemic, and now they would have, say, 30 new cars on the floor ready to sell. And now they'd have like 4.
For what? Oh, just okay. At once, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So like the amount of stock that they had coming in was dramatically lower. And so like the only cars available to people would be used cars, which again supports the theory that like, look, there were many less, not theory, just it supports that there were way less new cars that were coming into dealerships. But those pressures have started to subside at this point, and yet you still have dealers that are trying to get away with markup on everything, basically. Yeah. Like on a car as basic as like a Honda Civic or something, a new Honda Civic, trying to get markups on something like that. And eventually, I have to imagine there will be some form of crackdown, whether it be from the manufacturers or from legislation, in order to crack down on price gouging to keep prices to MSRP. But even then, the issue becomes you'll have dealerships that will end up with their preferred client list, and they'll end up selling to people at MSRP under the arrangement, knowing that those people will then bring the car back to the dealership to resell there, and the dealer will get to take that extra profit on an increased resale price because the new car sales will only go to those preferred clients who the dealer has an established relationship with. Now, this has always existed in certain manufacturers, but it's moving and making its way into basically
you can only imagine
everything.
You can imagine it's going to become a lot more prominent when, there are examples like your example where you're like, hey, I'm not paying double almost for this car. And then the dealer gets mad at you and goes and calls his preferred client.
Well, I wasted his time. He sat down with me at a table and spent 10 minutes of his time, which didn't end up in the car being sold. So therefore it was a waste, and he was mad, I'm sure, because he could have been talking to another sucker who would have paid $100,000, who maybe walked out because he wasn't talking to him. So
and so the more people that won't accept these absurd prices, there'll be more focus on just catering to.
Well, if, say, there's legislation that says you're not allowed to charge over sticker on a new car, they will cater to a preferred client list that they know will, and is only a preferred client because the dealership knows they will come back and resell the car with the dealer. And on those resales, which only normal people will be able to buy used cars from that dealership. If you're interested in a new one, they're all spoken for already. They've already been ordered. And any car that comes in, it'll already have an allocation. It'll have a name for it.
So that makes sense.
That's how they would work around it, is that if you want to walk into a dealership you've never worked with before, either maybe you have to wait 3 years or something like that. You're put at the back of the line, or you got to buy a used car for now. So that's how it could end up panning out, which that's already been the way for ages. That like Porsche GT cars have always worked that way. But now it's just that the markups on those have gotten more and more exorbitant. One of the best investments you could have ever made in cars is buying a Porsche 918. Because if you bought a Porsche 918,
specifically, what year?
2014, about.
Okay.
If you bought one of those, they were actually having a hard time selling all the new ones, and they were going for around $900,000 at the time. But if you bought one of those, basically it was Porsche said, look, we know our dealers will overcharge for GT cars, mark them up hugely, and we don't enforce this on you, dealerships. You do what you want, and we're not cracking down, but we're making a specific rule for these clients who have bought the 918. You are giving them every car they want at MSRP for the next 10 years.
What?
So
wow.
That is your one demand of you. So if you bought a 918, the 918 now goes for, depending upon the spec, 1.5 to 2 million, something like that.
Swell.
But every single car that you want, you could get at MSRP without any markups. I believe that's going to be expiring pretty shortly as the 10 years comes up. But you could have done very well for yourself.
Wow.
With that, yeah.
That's a nice little rule.
Yeah, knowing that, I'm like, I should have tried to take out a massive loan and get a 918 back in 2014.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I would have been approved for it, but it would have been a good idea.
Would have appreciated a lot as well.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, let's make Super Carvana. Super Carvana, hell yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. So anyway, I would, again, I know nice people who work at dealerships, and there are dealerships that are nice and have treated me well. And so, but I do think that a world in which we have the technology now, we should be able to buy direct from manufacturers for the manufacturers that want to do that.
Yeah.
It's just like, at least in that case, you know that you're in the same boat as everybody else in purchasing the car that you want to purchase, right? You know that it's not like, oh, this dealer is going to gouge me, but if I go over here, maybe I can wait a year and I can get less, but I don't know if that's going to pan out. I could check this dealer, maybe they'll treat. It's like there's such a huge degree of differentiation in how the process can go for you, depending upon what entity you go to when you're trying to get a car. Whereas if it ends up all being from the manufacturer, then it's a universal experience. Everyone knows that they're getting treated the same. and it would just, I do think it would be a better experience for the consumer. And I know like Ford is the first real big legacy manufacturer that is starting to do that on their new electric vehicles. It doesn't take care of the issue potentially with, used cars. But again, the reason why used cars started surging is because of a lack in supply of new cars. And so the new cars, they drive the used ones. Yeah.
Hey, edit note. The part that you're about to hear was not originally supposed to be included, but I guess we decide in 8.5 minutes that it is going to be included, which you'll hear. But yeah, that's why we suddenly switched to a completely unrelated topic for a couple minutes, but we will go back. I actually had these, I got these 2 bags of chips, but we didn't actually go into, I didn't get to do the demonstration for the chips. I bought these for a reason unrelated to me eating them, but I still haven't opened them. I don't know if I ever would have opened them.
Why did you buy them for not eating them?
Because I bought a bunch of Christmas presents for people in the office. I got you something too, but then I figured it'd be better for your birthday, and so it's gonna be for your birthday instead.
Oh my God.
But I bought all this stuff, and I didn't want them to know it was for me. I just wanted to anonymously put them there, because then it's like, oh, I didn't get you anything. Thank you. I'm like, don't talk to me about it. Just take it. And so it doesn't matter.
But now I'm going to know that it was something from you, and I'm like, I didn't get you anything for your birthday, which is the same day.
Well, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Oh, we have the same birthday? Oh, that's great.
I'm worried about it now.
No, don't be. I don't want anything. And so,
but neither do I.
I know, but this is the thing. I'm actually going to have to print out an explanation for it, because it's good. Maybe you'll know why I'm getting it for you, but if you don't, I wanted to have this picture frame with like sugar glass and like a paper with the screenshot of why, and then you're like, oh, okay, break in case of you don't understand, and like clink. But I don't know where to get.
This is way too much effort and thought.
Yeah. So anyway, don't worry about that now. The point of the chips were, I bought everyone a bunch of gifts, but I didn't want them to know for me. So I'm like, oh, naturally, if I'm the only one who doesn't get a present, then, they're going to tie it in. Doesn't matter. They figured it out anyway. But I have never confirmed it. I will deny it until I die. But I was going to get these because they were all very specific to the people. And so like I got like one of them, I got his grandmother's 60-year-old Christmas recipe that she made for him as a child. Another one was like her favorite poster. And
like you called up his grandma and it was like, hey, can I get your recipe?
No, people mention a lot of things over the course of a year, and I just noted them down like, yes. Okay. And so I mentioned that these were my favorite chips. I never snack ever, but I love these things. So I thought, makes sense. I bought these, and when I was going to wrap them.
Wait, were you going to do a fake self-gift?
Yeah. And I was be like, oh, hey, I have one too. Great. It couldn't have been from me. Why would I give myself anything? That's ridiculous.
Oh my God.
And then.
But you were going to eat them then. So you bought them to give to yourself. So there would be no suspicion, but they're your favorite chips. So you would eat them.
I mean, I haven't eaten them yet. I bought these.
Why haven't you eaten your favorite chips yet?
I don't snack that much. I really don't. Because if I snack,
I try not to either, but
well, I just kind of here's the thing: if I snack, I just won't eat the next meal because I just won't be hungry. You don't want to create
your own household chip shortage when you have no more chips left.
Yes, and so I thought I'd raise the rates of chips a little bit so there'd be less demand. That's why I bought 2, and so. I forget how we got here.
Well, you just said you had a bit with chips and you raised it up and then.
Oh yeah. That's right. Because if we're not going to do the car crash thing, then I also didn't do the chip bit, and so.
I mean, why don't we just say, hey, we were going to go into a segue about, car safety, but we didn't know for sure if it would fit. But it's still cool to watch cars crash. So now we can watch cars crash.
Okay.
There they go.
Cool. There they are. It's from 10 seconds to a minute and 20 seconds is the relevant piece.
It's a 1992 versus 2016 car crash. And as we can see, it hurts to be in a car that was born when I was born. Don't get an accident in that.
Always remember.
Oh, his head is exploded.
Oh yeah, his head is pretty gone. Yeah, I'm not watching it. I did watch it. I can only guess where you are. You're probably about to go like, oh, because of the full body.
Ooh boy.
Yeah. And
yeah,
then,
Oh wait, no. Oh, here's the inside of the car. Oh yeah.
That you didn't even see the inside?
No, I saw the over the shoulder from the outside. But
the inside's bad.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah. 1992 was not a good year to get into a fatal car. Actually, it was a good year to get into a fatal car crash. It wasn't a very good year to get into a car crash.
When I get my single-seater car, I need to not get into crashes.
When I get into a car crash...
Well, no, I just need to not get into a car crash when I'm in the car that I'm getting next, which is a single-seater that definitely doesn't have any safety feetures or anything like that. My head will just come off, probably.
A single-seater, like just you? Or single...
Yeah, single-seater, open cockpit with a helmet on.
You're actually getting a race car-ish type go-kart
Yeah,
type of thing.
It does have a license plate. It will have a license plate.
So you can drive it through the canyons.
Yeah, but yeah, in the event, that car versus probably, another car probably looks worse than the 1992 car, I would have to imagine. So,
this just in, Jordan is going to get into a car crash for the content for this podcast. He has GoPros.
Well, then there will be one host for the podcast after that, probably.
Oh, and it shouldn't be me, so we should probably set up a crash test dummy.
Oh, God. But anyway,
did you see the 2016 car crash?
Oh yeah, it was pretty good. Just a nice face print on the airbag, but so probably
it's
the face
interesting
hurts
that he was wearing makeup. But you got to look good when you're getting into a crash. If you're crashing the party, you better look good. And
that's clearly why they put that on the dummy, just for the looks.
Yeah, it's like when you go to your funeral, they dress you up in a suit. When you cause you funeral, you also get dressed up in a suit, of like a face suit. But we were gonna say about that is it's nice at least that with the increasing prices, at least we're getting some good safety features like the airbags all around, not being crushed from every side. Still too expensive, but at least you'll live to pay it off.
But that said, there haven't been such dramatic improvements in safety between 2020 and today.
Yes.
To justify the rampant cost. But you're just saying that, if you had drawn the line from 1992 up to prices as they are today, you could justify it in the name of safety. It's just that we got caught off guard by the big ramp up from 2021.
Maybe, I don't know if the exact line, but some increase, I suppose, is okay and warranted. We didn't get, by the way, chip shortage is for the most part, it's good. It's gone down.
It's winded down.
Yeah. I bought a whole bunch right here. We were going to do something.
Are we not going to include the explanation that you gave? Because I think that was a great explanation.
Should we? I don't know. If anyone were to ever watch this, which I've not told anyone,
you would be exposing yourself.
Yes, for giving people gifts, which I have not done. If you're watching, I lied about that. I was just kidding. I didn't get anyone anything. I wasn't going to include that.
So your plan worked.
My plan.
I mean, what? What plan?
But okay. Well, if we are including that, then I guess I'll just shove these aside and still won't open them until they expire. But yeah, no, I have not told. Oh, you better go get that.
What?
The noise. I just hear a noise too. It's in my ear.
Yeah, it's not me.
Oh, I thought. Okay, don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah, car prices hopefully go down soon. Oh no, I mean, I'm not saying they will, because if you do, they won't. But
I do not think they will. I think that MSRPs are going to catch up, and there's going to be some attempt at some point, possibly, to enforce keeping things more to MSRP.
Why do you think that?
Why do I think that they're not going to go back down?
No, why do you think enforcement will happen?
Because I think it reflects poorly on manufacturers to have dealers acting this way, and I do think it, even if it's not the manufacturer's direct fault, I think that the sour taste gets directed at them, whether they like it or not, and it doesn't. So, in terms of establishing brand loyalty, repeat customers, and just being talked about well, you don't want to have people just angry every time that they buy a car. Like, this sucked, and the dealer treated me poorly and jacked up the price and acted like they were doing me a favor. Like, it's just bad. And I think that even if manufacturers don't see an immediate cut into their bottom line, I think if they're trying to compete with others, they have to, again, make it so that they are offering as good of an experience in purchasing a vehicle from them as they can. And so I do think that there will be at least an attempt from some brands, probably, like Ford is already doing it with their new direct sales on electric vehicles. And I think we'll see more kind of follow in the footsteps, because once one company is able to start doing that, and they get good results from it, i.e. Tesla, obviously, it's going to start pushing more manufacturers to do the same.
That is a good reason. I thought initially you were thinking some sort of government regulation, and I was confused about that.
Maybe that happens at some point, depending upon how ongoing. But
yeah, it does make sense that the brands themselves would attempt it. Mm-hmm. Oh, there we go.
What's up?
Turned off my camera for just a second, but we're fine.
Yeah, your lighting went way down over the course of
that's recording this. Just because the sun has gone down.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I guess we are at time, more or less, and it's been more of a, like I said, more of an emotional podcast from me.
Yeah. First real heart toucher for you.
I mean, after I get my single seater car, I'm like I don't know that I will be buying any new vehicles for, a decade or so, maybe. I should say luxury purchases versus, like, sure, if I need a new day-to-day driver car, then that's one thing. But as far as, like, unnecessary cars, I think that'll be the last one for a while, because it's just become such an unpleasant thing to do, for the most part, unless there is a car that I like, that I really like, that is going to be offered to me at the MSRP at a fair price, and I'm really interested in it, which just doesn't happen that often. Which I should say, I've been fortunate enough, like with this car, I am getting it direct from the manufacturer. Like, I'm not going through a dealership on it, and so I get the MSRP, and, like, there's no having to haggle or anything like that, and I'm like, yes, this is how it should be. Please, more of this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyway, but other than that, it's just like I don't even like browsing cars anymore, because it's just like,
oh no,
it's better financially, though, much better to not do that. So it's probably a good thing,
but
at the end of the day.
It's like browsing houses on Zillow. It's like, oh wow, they're villains now. Yeah, it's like, oh wow, look at this. Yeah, I'd buy that house. Yeah, I'd buy this $50 million house. Of course, yes.
I mean, I like looking at the super expensive ones just because, that's really cool. And
yeah, it's like fun to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, even then, it's like in other housing markets, you're just like, what? Why you're asking twice what it sold for, like 3 years ago? What?
Yeah, and then getting mad at you if you don't take it. His gracious offer.
At least we don't have to deal with that. there.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress, and we should probably wind it down. Thanks everybody for watching.
Yeah. Thanks. Episode 10. That's a whole 2 hands.
What a milestone. Let's go.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.